Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday. It's Tuesday, January 18th, and I am here live with you. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to all of you that are just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover. And apparently, more often than I thought, I will be here live to answer your questions and to help encourage you to get started in this industry. It's a very warm and welcoming industry, I have found. And I'm pretty close to 2 years now of being full time with this. I started in mid June in 2018, roughly, or maybe around June 2018, and went full time almost 2 years ago. So exciting. But my channel, my YouTube channel, I have a lot of videos here that go through various things. I use Adobe Audition to record and to edit and format all my voiceovers and audiobooks. And I go through how to audition for audiobooks and what to do, what not to do on Fiverr and Upwork and a few other places, and just give you general advice. Just trying to be that voice that I needed, when I was getting started. So I'm here to help and encourage you to start this endeavor if this is what you want to do. So that's why I'm here. So if you have questions about voiceover, anything related to voiceover or audiobook narration, I'm here for you. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you just want to say hi, say hi. I'd like to see you guys here. And that's about it, I think. So I do have a poll because I'm very interested in the chat. If you take a look on, have you ever produced an audiobook under a pseudonym? And I asked that question because there's no shame in doing it. I think more often than not, we use a pseudonym for what we call the juicy books, the not safe for work books, if you catch my drift. I think we've all pretty much done them at some point, but there's no shame in doing them. You can use a pseudonym, and there's a lot of money in them. So, food for thought. But I was just curious to see if anybody has so far. We've got 7 votes, and we've got a solid no at 71% and no, but I would at 29%. So far, none of you have actually used a pseudonym, and it's okay to not. I mean, if you're fine with having your name on everything that you narrate, that's fine too. But some of us have small children or just don't want to be in that lane or be seen in that lane, and that's okay too. But, you do it the way that you want to do it. It's your business, right? All right, let's take a look at the chat. Let's see if we have some questions. It looks like we've got some comments here. Okay, so Seeking Freedom is here. Hello, hello. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. They say, hello. Is 1 year a realistic timeline for a beginner that is dedicated to daily activities necessary to promote and do auditions to see income of $1,000 per month? When you say dedicated to daily activities necessary to promote and do auditions, are you saying that after being in this for 1 year and marketing yourself and to see $1,000 per month? Yeah, I think that's totally doable. I think I was trying to remember in my first year, I don't think I did a whole lot of marketing per se, but I was on lots of different websites, voiceover websites, soliciting my services, basically. So I didn't do marketing personally. I kind of relied on the site that I was on to do the marketing at that point, after about a year. And I did pretty well. I did submit auditions, if that's what you're referring to. I did reach out to buyers on buyers' requests on Fiverr, and I also bid on jobs on Upwork as well. And I think at that point, I wasn't on voices.com or Voice123 as a paid level because, as you know, you don't get seen or you can't even audition on some of these sites without having like a paid membership. So at that point, I wasn't on those, but I was pretty active on Fiverr, Upwork, and ACX at that point. And I was doing pretty well. I think my first year, my first year, God, I'm trying to remember what I made in that first year, but it was, I think it was about close to that, about $1,000 a month, I think. After a solid year, perhaps I was there. But then I'd say I think that's realistic to answer your question. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. But my second year was phenomenal. Just by, wearing that customer service hat and making sure that you deliver what the client is looking for and maybe then some. If it's a short script, deliver 2 versions of it, go above and beyond. And those clients remember that and they're thankful for that. And they will come back to you because you did that. But just be careful in setting the expectation up front. Make sure that it's known that maybe the script could have gone one of 2 ways in your head and you wanted to make sure that the client got the appropriate tone. So you delivered 2 different versions. You know what I mean? Don't make it seem like you always give more, because then they're always going to expect it. But make sure that the clients are happy, and then they will come back to you again and again and again for that customer service, if that makes sense. But to answer your question, I know that was long-winded, but yes, it is totally doable. And the more that you put yourself out there, the more opportunities you will see come your way, for sure. Gary Bailey says, good day. Good day. Thank you for being here. Patrick is here. Hi, Patrick. Patrick Sharp says, good morning, Angela. Nice to see you back on another Q&A. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you're here too. It was a last minute decision. I was, it seems that you guys get value from this and I enjoy doing this. So I'll probably do more than these than I had originally anticipated. Andy B., you made it. Hello, hello. I have 2 questions. Apparently, I have been training and learning since September 2019 while I was full-time at my previous job. Should I be concerned I might be dragging my feet? That's really hard to gauge because everybody's journey, and I know this is cliche, but everybody's journey is different. What works for you might not work for me. What works for me might not work for you. When you're ready to take those steps forward, take those steps forward. You might not be ready just right now because not everybody's situation is the same. I was in a place where I had a little bit of extra time and I had the means to purchase the equipment that I needed and to learn and grow while I was still working for my employer. And then I eventually got to the point that I was able to spread my wings and go out on my own. But that might not be the case for you, and that's perfectly fine. But if you in your heart of hearts feel that you may be stuck in that procrastinating stage, or you feel like you can give more, but you're just not wanting to for maybe fear of failure or fear of commitment or whatever that is that's holding you back, then maybe. If you really want to do this, you really have to ask yourself, is this really something that I want to do? And if it is, then start to take steps forward. They don't have to be a lot or big steps. Take a notepad and jot down some goals for yourself. Write down what it is that you need to do. And then chunk that down into smaller steps if you have to. And then every day, take another step forward until you're at that place where you're comfortable or confident enough to take that step. That could be in a few months, that could be in a couple of years. It just depends on when you're ready. you know? But I don't think there's a certain amount of time that should pass to be at that point when you're ready, because it is different for everybody. For me, I guess it was fairly fast, but I was, I was ready to go. But if you're just not ready, you're just not ready. But if you want to keep moving forward, then make yourself a plan, give yourself little chunkable goals, and do one or two of them every day, and then keep moving forward. That might help. I hope that answers the question. Um, and then Andy also says, bought Waves NS1. That's a good plugin. And not sure how to use it and what settings to use. Is it used before Adobe Audition or after? That is a plugin that is pulled directly into your Adobe Audition and used as your effects rack. So NS1 is a noise reducing plugin. It is used with, it just has a sliding scale on it. And I think most of my voiceovers, when I apply it, and even audiobooks, it's about usually between 10 and 20 on that scale. And that will reduce your overall noise floor. So it removes or reduces any kind of ambient background noise. Sometimes it'll even reduce, maybe if someone's walking past the outside of your studio and they're talking, or a dog barking. I mean, you want to make sure that you remove those if they are audible, but it's a very good plugin for removing just like consistent ambient noise. But it really is just a sliding scale. So what you could do, especially in Adobe Audition where you have the plugin in your effects rack, you can listen to that track, the playback of your track with that plugin live. So you can actually hear the difference live while you're playing back what you recorded. I hope that makes sense. I think I have a video on my channel that is what is noise floor for ACX and how to fix it. Something of that nature, that's the title. That one, I think I specifically talk about Adobe Audition effects, and I might even touch on NS1 and how to use it. So definitely check out that video, but that's a great point. I might actually make a whole separate video on maybe plugins. That would be a good idea, on how to use different plugins and which ones I recommend. So that's actually a great idea. So I hope that helps. But you can always reach out to me directly, and I can talk you through this a little bit more if you like. Patrick Sharp says, pseudonyms are good tools indeed, even for musicians, if I can say it, musicians. People like to typecast, and I think that's the real issue. Sometimes people can't accept artists expanding their creative boundaries. That is very true. That is very true. And pseudonyms could be used for any reason you want it. Maybe it's something that's controversial. Maybe it's something that goes against your beliefs, but it's something that you wanted to do, you felt compelled to do, but you don't want your name on it. I mean, there could be many different reasons. Whatever reason is right for you, if you feel like you want to use a pseudonym, there's no shame in it. Do what you feel is right. I'm just going back to the poll here. We have 13 votes, and so far we're at 69%. Still no yeses. Interesting. Okay. Joseph is here. Hi, Joseph. Joseph Mankowski says, hi, Angela. Well, hello, Joseph. I love that you do these. So helpful. Well, thank you for joining and participating. I appreciate you. I'm glad to know that you guys like that I do this. So it's validating. Thank you. I'm glad that it helps. Seeking Freedom says, thank you for your answer. That was very helpful. Thank you. Okay, good. Joy is here. Hi, Joy. Joy West says, hello, everyone, from freezing Southfield, Michigan. Oh my gosh. Did you guys, I thought I read somewhere that you guys had a really big snowstorm recently within the last couple of days. Granted, I don't get out of my cave of wonders very often, but I do see the news from time to time. And of course, TikTok, because everybody's, everybody talks about everything on TikTok. So I'm glad that you're here. It's not to rub your nose in it, but it's 56 degrees and partly sunny here in Phoenix, Arizona. We don't see snow much I think it snowed in Scottsdale for like 5 minutes 5 years ago, but it does get very hot here in the summer, so it's a trade off. Joseph says, thoughts on porta booth. So when porta booth, when I see the words porta booth, I think of a couple of different things because it could be a couple of different things. I've seen it used a couple different ways. And porta booth could be what we call a hobo fort, which is PVC pipe frame with maybe moving blankets or blankets around it kind of draped over, and that's portable, so you can kind of move that booth around. Or it could be like a prefabricated booth that's sort of the same thing, that it's a portable booth that you can move around, excuse me, put up, take down, and move around wherever you want. Or I also think of those, what do they call them? Like an ISO shield. So it's kind of a shield that mounts behind your mic. Excuse me. Those are good for maybe travel, I think. But essentially, all it's doing is blocking some of the reverb that, because if it's positioned behind your mic, I don't even know if you guys can even see what I'm doing here. But if it's positioned behind your mic and you're talking into your mic, it's blocking out some of the reverb from your voice projecting straight forward and then bouncing back into your mic and a little bit off to the sides. But if you're in a small room like mine, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's like a 5x6 room. So if I speak in here, my voice is going to bounce off that wall, that wall, that wall, the ceiling, and then the wall behind me and into my mic. So the ISO shield is going to reduce a little bit of that, but it's not going to completely resolve a reverb problem if that's what you're trying to use it for. The best way to reduce reverb or like a boxiness sound in your room is to treat the walls, because the walls is where a lot of that reverb and that boxiness comes from. You have to have soft surfaces on your walls. I know you can see the moving blankets behind me on the walls here, but just that soft surface will it'll absorb that reverb that bounces all over the room and then into your mic, causing that echo. So porta booths are great, but for me, specifically the ISO shield, I guess is what I'm referring to, because the porta booths are good. I mean, everyone's got to do what they got to do to make this work. But the ISO shields, I think, would be good for, actually, I don't even know if they'd be good for travel, because unless you have one that really folds up small, it would be kind of hard to travel and pack. So I had one in the very beginning, and I used it for a very short period of time because I realized for me in my space, it didn't really help me at all. I had to bite the bullet and treat all of the walls in here to reduce the reverb. So it might work for you in your particular case. I'm not, I don't know, but it's worth trying if you have maybe, I'm trying to think of how that would work. So if you were in maybe a closet, if you have converted a closet like a walk-in closet, or like one of those like a standard closet, like in a bedroom that just has a sliding door and you kind of can stick your head in, it might help to block some reverb on the walls that you can't cover. If you can't completely surround yourself with soft surfaces, it might help, but I honestly don't know how much help they really are, So I hope that answers your question, but it didn't really work for me in my situation. Excuse me. Patrick says, hello, Joy West. Good day for you, or to you, from chilly New York. Looks like everybody's pretty chilly. Joy's answering, Patrick, we're on the same iceberg. Oh my gosh. Okay. Joy says, Angela, where is the best place to start as a voice actor wannabe? We were all voice actor wannabes, I think, at some point. And then you get addicted and then you become a voice actor because it is a lot of fun. I have a video I just was it last week? I think it was last Thursday that came out. The 3 best places uh, for finding work for voiceover beginners, I think is what it was called. And in that video, I talk about the 3 places that I started, which was ACX, which is an arm of Amazon. And that is where the authors and narrators come together to produce audiobooks for Audible and some other distributors around the world, depending on what the rights holder chooses to for distribution of their book. Excuse me. So ACX, and then I went to Fiverr, and then I went to Upwork. And those, now considering there's about 100 different websites for voiceover work, literally about 100 of them and more, new ones coming up all the time, those 3 places were, I think, the easiest for me to at least get started, to at least get my feet wet, to experience how to record, how to format, how to communicate with clients and navigate the sites. Those were the easiest for me, I think, to get the ball rolling. And then once you have a little bit more experience under your belt, and maybe if you consider some coaching and some training or a mentor to help you with some of the voice acting aspects and, types of tone and formatting or whatever it is that you need, then you can move on to some of the other sites where there's a lot more voiceover specific competition, like voices.com, Voice123, Bodalgo, VO Planet, Voquent. I mean, there are a lot of them. But I would say Fiverr, Upwork, and ACX were the best places for me to get started, and I always recommend them. They were very helpful in getting the ball rolling for me. Just going really quickly back to the poll, 19 votes. Let's see. And the question was, have you ever produced an audiobook under a pseudonym? We've got 74% no, still no yeses, but 26% no, but I would. It's still very interesting to me. Am I the only one? I have narrated under a pseudonym. There's not much that scares me. Edwin00, hello. Yes, we love your Q&A, Angela. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining and for watching and for participating. I appreciate that. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here just talking to myself, which I do all day anyway, right? Oh my gosh. Enterprise voiceover. Hello, Eric. Thank you for stopping by. Good morning. Joy says, I've been trying to get my husband to move us somewhere in Scottsdale, Arizona. It is the housing, the prices here are insane. Oh my gosh, the housing out here, because I was looking to buy a house, not in Scottsdale, but close to, North Phoenix. And they've doubled. It's insane how much prices are, our houses are here. It's nuts. So we'll just stay here in our house a little bit longer until the dust settles. Good Lord. It is expensive, but Scottsdale is really nice. Edwin00 says, if you had to start from the beginning today and knew what you knew now, what would you do first? How would you deal? That's a good question. Knowing what I know now, I think because Fiverr for me and Upwork for me were very great places for me to be. I find a lot of work on both of those sites. I would start those profiles right now, and I would fill them out to the T. I would have videos. I would have 3 different pictures in the gallery, all of your audio samples, all the PDFs. I would have every single gig filled out to the nines, stellar thumbnails. And because learning all of that comes with a lot of trial and error, a lot of frustration, a lot of beta testing. to see what works and what doesn't, I would go immediately to, let's just say Fiverr as an example, and look at what other people are using as titles, tags, their descriptions, their pricing structures, and come up with a game plan for a comparable gig with fabulous eye-catching thumbnails, which I still can't seem to get done for myself. I'm not the best at thumbnails, but knowing how much money and how many of the big businesses are on Fiverr hiring voice talent, I would be on there in a heartbeat with the best gigs that I could possibly produce to grab their attention and earn that business. So Fiverr and Upwork for sure. Upwork too. Upwork has a lot of great businesses there that do business there for lots of different reasons, just like Fiverr. And I think that's what I would do first, knowing what I know now, because there's a lot of money to be made on Fiverr if you can grab their attention, if you know what I mean. Joy West says, would a porta booth be better for a small bedroom? Again, if it's a portable booth, like a framed in booth with blankets and moving blankets, that sort of thing, that would be great for a small bedroom because you could kind of move it off to the side when you're not using it, so it's not in your way. But if we're talking about like an ISO shield, I think that's what they called, where it's kind of an isolation shield that kind of goes around the back end of your microphone, that could help, but you're better off treating the space that you're in, meaning putting those soft surfaces on if you have any hard walls around you, your voice is going to reflect and bounce back and cause all kinds of echo and boxiness sounding recordings. So I think the best way, if you're going to make this a full-time thing, or if you're really serious about doing this, the best advice I can give you in treating your space is to have a dedicated space where you're not going to move, and treat that space, meaning put soft surfaces on the walls, your desk surface too, that reflects most of the time. Even your monitor can reflect sound back to your microphone. Just really take a hard look at your recording space, and once you have everything dialed in, after a lot, it's going to take some practice, record a clip, listen back, see if you hear anything, echo or boxiness, and then treat the walls, record again, test it again, listen back. And then once you're at that spot where everything sounds great, don't touch anything. Because again, clients are counting on you to sound the way that you sound in your demos. So if they hire you based on what they hear in your demos, they're expecting to hear that in your delivery. And then the delivery a month down the road, and then another delivery another month down the road. Everything has to sound consistent. Your clients are counting on you to have a consistent sound. So if you can, that is the ideal situation, is to have a dedicated spot where you can record your voiceovers. So a portable booth is a great start. If you don't really, like if you're in an apartment and you can't really do much to the walls, I totally understand. But that booth should stay where it's at, or everything inside. Even if your mic placement is just a little bit different or position different, or, any little change can change the sound of your voice, especially if you have like a shotgun mic, because me talking in front of it here is going to sound a lot different than talking way back here, or, over here. It has a different sound. And even with like audiobooks, because we don't typically record an audiobook all in one sitting, if it's a larger one, we're going to break it up into chunks. So if you're moving your porta booth, day one, it's in one spot and your mic is right here. And then day two, your booth is back in its spot and then the mic is over here, or a little higher or a little lower. It's going to sound a little bit different. So ideally you want to have, again, and I'm sorry if I'm broken record, but a dedicated spot where everything is set and nothing is moved. It should sound consistent. I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent. I tend to do that. Sorry. But it would work good for a small bedroom if you can kind of have a spot to keep it, if that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Edwin00 says, sorry, how would you deal with the challenges that were the most hardest in your journey? Oh, I think my biggest challenge in the very beginning was having that day job, because that took 10, 11 hours of my day. And then the time that I had when I got home to actually record the voiceovers was limited because also being a mom, there's chores, there's dinner, there's homework, there's getting the kids, to school. There's all of that in there too. So my only real time to work was during the weekends or late at night. And that I think was my biggest challenge, was just managing my time efficiently. And even when I went full time, I was having a hard time remembering this, doing this at the proper time. But having an agenda book, let me just show you what I have here. But I'm sure you know what I mean. But let me just show you like a blank page. But having an agenda book where, if you can see this, where each day has spots where you can write in, things that are due, auditions to be sent, notes to yourself, clients to meet, anything that you have to do in a day. Because once you get to the point where there is, where you're meeting with clients or you're doing live sessions, live directed sessions, and you have auditions due and you have orders due, it's very helpful. It was for me anyway, to have that all directly in front of me. So I think, to answer your question, time was one of the biggest challenges. But of course, when I got to the point where my business was losing money by being, employed for someone else, that was when I decided it was time. Because the more time I can dedicate to my own business gave me the ability to replace the other income and be full time. But still, managing my time was difficult and remembering everything was difficult. So having the agenda book and not having that job, I think, or having that job, I think, were my biggest challenges. But you just kind of have to do what's best for you and your business, right? But I recommend having an agenda book. I mean, I know we have all of these devices. The phones are great for reminders and things of that nature. But for me, in my studio, everything laid out in front of me, meaning my agenda book is open on today's date, I can glance down and go, oh, that's right. I have this and then I have this tomorrow, so maybe I can move this around. It's just helpful to me have everything available at a glance, if that, excuse me, I'm sorry I'm so froggy today. But time management, I think, was my biggest hurdle. Excuse me. Oh, Trinchera Music, Arthur's here. Hi, Arthur. I'm glad you could stop by. Joy West, I forgot. Would a portable booth be good for a walk-in closet? Yes, if you have the other walls around you treated as well, because even if you have a ceiling that's above you, that ceiling is also going to reflect sound. So, and also floors, if you have hardwood floors, those hardwood floors are going to also reflect your voice. So whatever space that you choose to record in, just take a good look at it. Look for any hard, shiny surfaces or just hard surfaces and make sure those are covered. Put a rug down on the floor or go to your local thrift store and grab, excuse me, sorry, I don't know what's going on with me today. Grab a blanket or a towel, something that's just inexpensive, and hang that on your walls or cover your desk surface with it. Because I think that is the biggest issue that we tend to face, is dealing with reverb and like a boxiness sound. But if your walls are treated, then that will help you tremendously. And it also will help reduce your noise floor if you're recording audiobooks as well. So yeah, I know a few people that actually use their walk-in closet as a studio, but the clothes in there definitely help to reduce some of that reverb. But again, if you have hard ceilings or hardwood floors or any open swaths of wall, you want to make sure all that stuff is covered so none of that reflection gets back into your microphone. John B. Jenkins, hello, hello. He says, hi, Angela, or anyone else. What is the best service for royalty-free music for producing commercial spots? I use Storyblocks. It is a storyblocks.com. They have video, they have audio, they have sound effects, they have After Effects templates. They have thousands of royalty-free tracks. It does require a yearly or monthly membership, depending on which way you go. But with that, you get the license to use these. And for me, with clients that use my voice for meditation, affirmations, that sort of thing, most of the time, music is attached to those. So when they put those on YouTube or anywhere else and they get like, well, I guess YouTube, for example, if they get a copyright strike, I can provide that license to them to clear that copyright strike. And that is usually because someone else using the music has tried to claim copyright on royalty-free music, which happens from time to time. But having that license is that peace of mind that I need to keep doing this. You can go to sites that, and I just thought of this the other day. It's Orange something, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. But they have like music in the Creative Commons that you can use. Creative Commons meaning royalty free and you don't have to pay for it. It's free for you to use. YouTube Studio also has music that you can use. But for me, I always want to have the peace of mind of doing it the right way, having that license in my back pocket. And especially for commercial spots or anything like that, where royalty-free music is going to be a big deal for the client. So I would definitely recommend that. Wow, Edwin, thank you. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, thanks, Angela. You rock and punch fear in the face. I love that. Yes, punch fear in the face and just do it, right? That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that super chat. You're awesome. Wow, thank you. Okay, squirrel. All right, let me scroll back up a little bit. Patrick says, I have a closet that is covered in sound blankets, and I've achieved a noise floor of around -70 dB. So if you can spare a closet, you can keep the cost fairly low, for sure. This room that I'm in it's like an odd little storage closet / office. I'm not sure. It's just this really tiny little room that's like on the ground floor of my townhouse. It's just a strange little room that we converted into a studio, so it works for me. But yeah, even if you have, I know a few people that have stairs in their house and they have like that little under the stairs closet. I know a few people who have converted that into a studio as well, so that could work. Patrick also says, what are the PDFs on Fiverr all about? I didn't understand what they wanted when it came to that aspect of my profile. Those PDFs are there, I'm guessing, for probably other types of sellers that have breakdowns of maybe examples of their work or, writers, bloggers, things of that nature. But for a voice actor, you can use those PDF slots to maybe you could go through the steps of placing an order. You can list some of the clients that you've worked with. You could, like a resume of sorts, maybe your background experience, a little bit about you. You can use those PDF slots for really anything. I think for my gigs, I gave them a little bit of a background of what equipment I used in my studio, and everything was broadcast quality. You get the idea, sort of that thing. But you can use those PDF slots for mostly what I see is like how to place an order, because it can be confusing if you've never used Fiverr before. So that could be helpful. That could be a good thing to use for a PDF slot on Fiverr. I hope that helps. Joy says, I'm on Upwork for data entry, but I noticed there are nice paying nice paying job over posts there. There are. And you can have multiple profiles on Upwork. You can have three, up to three, I believe. You could have a general, and then you could have two specialized. So even if you're on there for data entry, you could have a whole other profile for voiceover, and that will open you up to voiceover jobs. So if you place a bid on a voiceover job, that client can go back to your voiceover profile and see that you offer that as well. So you could do that for sure. Andy says, what is your suggestion to ensure that all chapters of an audiobook sound uniform and the same from chapter to chapter, same time every day? Having the same process, having everything in the same place. Like I don't move. I move my microphone from time to time, but I'm comfortable enough in moving it, knowing that I can get back to where I excuse me, I could get back to where I was. So it only moves maybe within a couple of inches. So everything in here stays the same. So as long as your chair doesn't really move, your mic doesn't really move, and all of your processing steps are the same from chapter to chapter to chapter, they should sound pretty much the same. There is a little bit of a variance in for RMS on Audible, because they give you these parameters for ACX, for noise floor, for RMS, for peak volume. So as long as you stay within the ranges and you don't eclipse those thresholds, you're fine. They don't have to be exactly the same, but they do have to fall within the parameters for ACX. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there in sounding different. You just don't want the volume to be vastly different from one to the other, or, you know, if your mic is here versus back here, I mean, even a little bit of a change is going to change the way you sound. So what I have found out the hard way is to, once you have everything set, don't touch anything. That includes your chair. Keep your chair in the same position if you can, or your seating position, you know, to make sure that everything sounds pretty much the same from chapter to chapter. But the processing is another big one. Have your processing chain the same for each chapter will help. Just checking out the poll again, 23 votes. Still no yeses. Nobody has ever produced an audiobook under a pseudonym apart from myself, apparently. So 61% say no and 39% say no, but I would. Interesting. Okay. Dave Capper. Hello, Dave. Hi, Angela. When you rant, there is so much valuable information in there that we don't even think of. Thank you for ranting and going into the nitty-gritty details that we may take for granted. You know, I apparently take that for granted as well, because I forget talking about this day in and day out. I forget about all of those nitty-gritty details. So I may feel like I'm ranting and just boring the crap out of you guys, but it's all valuable information. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for that. It makes me feel a little bit better about going off on some of my tangents. Andy says, I am bad at time management. I was too. And I am a procrastinator, but your agenda book answers the question. It really does help. It seems very rudimentary to have a notebook, you know, pen and paper in the day of digital everything, but it really does help for me, because at a glance, I don't have to touch my phone. I don't have to click anything. It's there. I can glance down and see what I have to do today, tomorrow, the next day. It is very, very helpful, because it'll help me move things around. If a client reaches out and say, hey, I need this done in 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever it is, I can glance down and go, okay, I can move this to this spot because this isn't due until tomorrow. So yeah, I can totally do it. So it helps me in so many ways in managing my time and not forgetting anything, right? You know, if the kiddo's got a half day at school, it's there. So I know that I have to be somewhere. So it really, really does help. Now I am on leave, rehabbing after knee surgery, so I have a bigger opportunity to dive back into VO. definitely take that opportunity. I mean, if you're up to it, I know knee surgery is not a fun thing. Any kind of surgery is not fun, and you just don't really feel like doing anything other than, getting better and healing. But if you're up to it, then definitely take advantage of that time and at least start writing some stuff down, some goals, plans for the future. What are we going to do first and how do we get there? And then write those down and then accomplish one of those or two of them, every day to keep yourself moving forward. So then when you're ready and you're healed up, then you're ready to run in both aspects. Maybe not running in real life. Don't hurt yourself. Joy says, I'm totally with you for the agenda book. I'm terrible at organizing my day. Yeah, for sure. I was too. By the way, my walk-in closet is full of clothes, boxes on the shelves, and flooring is carpeted. That could be a good place to start. I know it's a pain to move things and, to rewire the computer and all of that stuff. I've done it a few times myself, and it really, really stinks. But in the end, if the end result that it turns out to be, the most fabulous place to record, then, why not give it a try? Take an hour and put it all in there and just treat the walls around you, just kind of like, hang up some towels or, whatever you have handy just to see if it sounds good. And if it doesn't, then but there's a good chance that it might. So I would definitely say give it a try, and see if it sounds good. Joy says, have you ever heard of a site called Backstage? Yes. Is it an okay site? Backstage, I have a profile on Backstage. I don't think I've ever auditioned, nor have I got a job on Backstage, but I have seen some posts for jobs. I have heard of other voice artists earning jobs on Backstage, not a whole lot, but it is possible. Backstage is definitely a legit site. They just had a sale on their membership too around Christmas time. It was half off. It was like $50. God, what was it, for a month or for a year? I don't remember. I want to say it was for the year, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But Backstage is legit. But just like with every other site, what you put into it is what you're going to get back out of it. The more you audition and market yourself and, reach out to people and introduce yourself that way, the more you're going to see a return on that time investment, that sweat equity, right? So give it a try. Andy says, when developing your effects rack, can you count on using the same effects in EQ? As long as your space around you doesn't move, as long as you have that dedicated space where you don't have to move anything, including your chair placement, your mic placement, the computer screen, the desk, your effects rack is set to how you sound right as you set that effects rack. If you change the environment around you, then that effects rack might need to be changed a little bit to compensate for, the mic being a little bit further away, or maybe there's now a little bit of reflection from that wall over there now. If your environment changes, your effects rack might need to be adjusted to compensate for that change. So that is another reason why I say to have a dedicated space if you can. That way everything is set and you don't have to touch anything. I definitely don't recommend touching anything because, gremlins run rampant when you touch things. So, but yeah, that is another reason why I say to just get it set in its spot. Don't touch it because your effects rack would need to be changed to compensate. But as long as nothing else changes, you can have the same effects rack and use it again and again and again for all of your orders if you wanted to. Patrick Sharp says, thank you, Angela. The explanation of the PDF option on Fiverr was very helpful. Well, good. Because I had the same question. I'm like, oh, I'm a voice actor. What am I going to put on a PDF? And I I had seen someone else use it. They laid out a step by step how to place an order, and then another person I saw used it for background on them and their experience with theater and teaching and that sort of thing. So, whichever way you want to use it, but I would highly recommend filling everything out on Fiverr that you can, because that seems, I don't know for sure, but it seems to help the algorithm promote you more often if you took the time to fill out everything on your profile. So, food for thought. Kirk is here. Hi, Kirk. Luckily, my chair sinks into my floor padding, so it kind of self-locks into position. Nearly impossible for the position to change. That is, my chair kind of does that too. This is like, I don't know if it's because it is like a little, like an afterthought room. I'm not even sure, but it has like generic construction grade padded carpet in here. So there's no pile. It's just very flat and very padded. So my chair sinks into place as well. So luckily I don't have to move it. I just kind of swivel. Anyway, I can't really do it right now, but I just swivel to get out of because the door is right here. So I just swivel my chair and then I walk out of my door and then I sit down and then I swivel back into position every day. So my chair doesn't move either. But that was, I guess it's helpful that I'm wearing a spot in the floor. Maybe not, I don't know. Joy says, nope, I get a lot out of your rants. So it's all good. Well, good. Eric says, I hear you, Kirk. Same here. Awesome. You guys rock. Thank you for being here, both of you. Andy B says, agenda book. Use a pencil. You could. Mine has big enough slots that I write with pen. I love a good gel pen. It was one of the first purchases when I went full time, was to get a package of Amazon Basics pads to write on, like notepads, and then like a couple boxes of these Pilot G2 gel pens, because I love a good gel pen. There's nothing better than a good gel pen. You could use a pencil to erase stuff out, but I just scribble it out and write next to it. I think for me, in my neuroses, if I scribble something out, I can see that I had changed it. I can still see what it was before. So if someone asks a question about maybe a reschedule, in a meeting, then I can say, well, it was at this time or day because I scribbled it out, so it's essentially still there, or strike through it so you can read what it was. Maybe that's just the corporate brain, to cut to CYA. Maybe that's just that. I'm not sure. But you could use a pencil or a pen, again, whatever is preferable for you, depending on how much room you have on your page for that day. I thankfully have a little extra room so I can cross through stuff and not have to erase it. Andy says, desktop is in the basement. Was going to use the Zoom digital recorder upstairs in the walk-in closet in the master bedroom. I remember you talking about this. I think you were sending me messages on Facebook, I believe, or Messenger. And I actually know another voice artist who had just started. It's been a couple months now that she's begun, but her recording space is in a basement. And depending on the acoustics in the room, I was actually very surprised that her basement sounded as good as it did. And all she did was put, acoustic foam in front of her, or a blanket, or I forget exactly what it was, but she had put some sort of a soft surface directly in front of her where there was a wall. And then the rest of it was just open behind her as, like a basement. So, but it sounded really good. I'm not sure how she pulled that off. So it would just depend on, how your basement is laid out. I would definitely try it, record a little something and then listen back to it and see how it sounds. See if you can manipulate that sound a little bit with your effects rack. And if it ends up, the end result sounds good, then definitely use it. We have to be very flexible in where we can do our work. But I've been very surprised by the creativity of some voice actors. I know a couple that drive big rigs, cross country for work, and they made a little studio inside of their cab of their big rig. I mean, it can be done. You just might have to get creative, use a little ingenuity and a little elbow grease, and you could probably make it work. But definitely test it and see how it sounds. I'd be interested to hear what that sounds like. Tony Scott says backstage was $75 for the year. Okay. I signed up but nothing booked yet. Okay, so the sale that I'm thinking of was around Christmas time, or like a Black Friday thing. I forget what it was. So it must have been $50 for the year, which would be a good deal because in theory, 1 or 2 jobs, depending on the size of the job, would cover that fee for the year. But I've never won a job there either. But then again, I've never tried. I've never, I should probably refresh my demos now that I'm thinking about it on Backstage. But, they're not always going to be the same. They're not all going to work as well for everybody. And I often find that a lot of us have one particular site that is just like a gold mine. You'll do really, really good on one site, but not so much on this one. And then others, it's quite the opposite. For example, I hear most people do really, really well on Fiverr, but not so good on Upwork. And then there's vice versa, where they do really, really well on Upwork, but not so good on Fiverr. And then the same with some other sites, like the gal I was just talking about with the basement that sounded really good. She does really, really well on voices.com, and it's not even, on Fiverr or Upwork. So, there could be a site that you just really, really do well at, and then the others are just kind of like meh. Or you do really, really well on all of them. It's really hard to say. But I'm going to have to take another look at Backstage. Edwin00 says, what do you think of stream decks for voiceover artists? And how long did it take you to get all your VO gear together and set up? Well, let me just start with the gear, because a lot of that was also trial and error. And then also, once you start buying gear, it's kind of addicting. It's like tattoos or collecting things. It's really addicting to get new gear. So I upgraded microphones just twice. But and my interface I upgraded once. But everything else has pretty much been in here with me for a while. And getting this, I think I've had the Sennheiser now for about 2 years. And I don't have any plans of getting rid of it. Even if I get another microphone, I'm still going to keep this one as a backup or use this for other projects. But it took me probably about a year and a half maybe. I'd say maybe a year and a half to have everything set up properly the way that I wanted it to be and that I was comfortable with going forward into professional voiceover. And that's about when I went full time, was after about a year and a half. As far as the stream decks go, I got one for Christmas and I'm still trying to figure out how to use everything on it. I've got all the buttons set, and it actually is a really cool device because you can set buttons for, Adobe products. Like if you edit video or add voiceover to video, you could add like a whole command chain to a singular button. Now, I use OBS to stream my YouTube content. And there is a little bit of a connection that OBS, or you need to download something else to connect OBS to the Stream Deck, from what I understand. I kind of got it for Christmas, played with it a little bit, and haven't got to the point where I could really figure out how to make it work for me. But in theory, it could be really, really helpful for going live, for recording video, or starting a live connection, or any kind of series of commands that used to take you several clicks or pages to do, you can now program all of that into one singular button and have it at your fingertips. So in theory, it could be very, very helpful in doing anything. If you're in an office, you have video, audio, constant commands that you're giving the computer to do. You can make a lot of shortcuts with a Stream Deck. So it could be very, very helpful. I just need to figure out how to use it properly. I hope that answers your question. Oh my gosh. Kirk says, gel pens rock. VO, gelin' and yellin'. That's how I'm going to start our meeting on Thursday, is gelin' and yellin'. That could be our new tagline. No, not really. It doesn't really apply, but very funny. I love gel pens. And don't shoot me if I butcher your name, but I'm going to try it. Lilokin? Is that right? Thank you for sharing your insights and videos. You have helped me to begin my very own voiceover journey. Look forward to being able to speak with soon. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I'm very glad that they help, because I'm doing my best to have a coherent conversation with you guys and give you guys what you need. But I tend to go off on tangents and see squirrels and stuff. So I apologize for that. But apparently even that is helpful. So thank you for saying that. I'm glad that I help. Andy B. I can try, but I would be at a disadvantage due to the unfinished nature of the basement. And also gas furnace is wall mounted. And there is the solar collection stuff on the wall, but I'll try. It sounds like you have a lot of challenges. So I think maybe if you can't make it work for you in the basement, you might have to look for another area. Or maybe you could try to, down in the basement, have create the word just escaped me. Oh, like a PVC pipe frame, like we were talking about earlier with the porta booth. That would reduce some of the ambient noise in your recording space, but it's not going to completely block out all of the other noises. It might turn out that the basement might not be the best choice if you have all of these things down there that are making noise. If you have another spot to try, that might help. If you have a closet somewhere that maybe isn't being used often, that maybe you can convert. A lot of times we have a coat closet by the front door. That was my second option. I have one right behind me that could have been another option, although the water heater is in there. It's a weird setup here, I know. But that would be the only real noise other than people walking up and down the stairs to contend with. But you kind of have to make it work with what you have. Like I said, you might have to get really creative, but it's worth it just to try and see what it sounds like, Matthias R. says, "Hi, Angela. It's an honor to meet you." Well, it's an honor to meet you too. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. Ooh, let's check out the poll really quick. Oh, we've been on for about an hour. I don't want YouTube to cut me off like they did last time. So let's just begin to wrap this up today. So we got 24 votes. It's still no yeses. Nobody has ever produced an audiobook under a pseudonym, apart from me. Lilokin says, perfectly said, yes! That's my win for the day. I get a gold star. Thank you. Joey West says, LOL, I'm old school. Same. I use the number 2 pencil so I can erase when I totally screw something up. Awesome. That works too. I think for me, just crossing stuff out is gratifying because you could just cross it out. I guess you could do the same thing with your eraser on your pencil. Edwin00 says, LOL. I know, I'm a goober. I'm a goofball, but you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming by today and participating and asking questions. And Edwin, again, thanks for that super chat. I really appreciate it. And for everyone who participated in the poll, I'm going to go ahead and, okay, so we got another vote. Still no yeses. Don't sleep on the pseudonym, guys. If there's something that you don't want your name on, but you want the job, audiobook-wise, you can always use a pseudonym. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, so that'll post. But let me just make sure I haven't missed anything. It looks like, okay, great. I know there's a 10-second delay, but if anybody has any last final questions or anything, go ahead and post it now. I'm going to be heading offline here in a minute because not last stream, but the one before, YouTube had like cut off like the last 30 seconds when I was saying goodbye to everybody. I don't know why they did that, but anyway, maybe it was something I did. Who knows? All right, I'm not seeing any more questions, so I'm going to say goodbye. Everybody have a fabulous week, and I will see you all. Oh, what just came up? I missed it all. Johnny, you did. Well, you're here now, and I'm sorry, but it is the end. I was just about to leave, but thank you anyway for stopping by. You can always watch this again after it processes and it's available for watching again. But thank you so much, everybody, for participating and stopping by today and for participating in the poll. You guys are the best. I'll see you all next time, maybe even next week.